All right, let's do this. Welcome to another deep dive. And today we're taking a look at Ashlee Vance's Elon Musk.
Oh, yeah, a classic.
It really is, and I think this one's going to be a wild ride. You know, Musk, he's this larger-than-life figure, rockets, electric cars, even trying to get us to Mars. Vance paints this picture of a guy who's just constantly pushing boundaries.
And what I find fascinating is the book goes beyond the headlines. You know, you get these glimpses into his personality, his drive, the toll it all takes. It's really quite revealing.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to dive into all of that, his childhood, early companies, those almost didn't make it moments. But where do you think we should even start with a guy like Elon Musk? I mean, he's done so much.
Well, I think going back to his childhood is crucial. Vance talks about how Musk was this voracious reader, just devouring information like a sponge.
Oh, yeah. The book mentions he'd, tear through encyclopedias. Encyclopedias. Who does that?
Right. It's like he was, I don't know, downloading knowledge, preparing for something big. And it wasn't just reading. At 12 years old, he programmed and sold a video game.
Wow. 12. I was barely figuring out how to use a Nintendo at that age.
Exactly. I mean, you see these glimpses of his entrepreneurial spirit so early on. That drive to turn ideas into reality, it's a theme that runs throughout his entire life. I mean, from Zip2 to, well, everything that comes after.
Let's talk about Zip2 then. It was essentially like a digital map for newspapers, right? Years before we had Google Maps or anything.
Yeah, way ahead of its time. And Vance really sets the scene. It's the dot-com boom. Everyone's chasing these quick riches. But Musk, he's not in it for a quick buck, you know?
Yeah, he's sleeping in the office, showering at the YMCA, living off Jack in the Box, totally obsessed with building this groundbreaking thing.
There's even that story about him drilling a hole in the office wall just to get an Ethernet cable installed.
Oh, yeah. I remember that. It's resourceful, sure, but you also get a sense of his intensity, that whatever it takes mentality. But even with that drive, his leadership style, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly smooth sailing, was it?
Yeah, Vance doesn't sugarcoat it. Musk could be incredibly demanding, blunt, had these sky-high expectations. I mean, there are stories about him literally diving into engineers' code, fixing it, and then, calling them idiots.
Oof. Yeah, that's rough.
Not exactly a recipe for happy employees, right?
Right.
But, despite all the friction, Zip2 ends up being acquired, Musk becomes a multimillionaire, and that leads him to, well, the PayPal chapter.
Okay, so PayPal. Everyone knows PayPal, but I bet most people don't know the whole story, especially Musk's role in it.
Oh, it's a wild one. He basically takes his Zip2 earnings and pours them into this company called X.com. His vision was to revolutionize online finance. And it was this head-to-head battle with, the big players, the banks, the established giants, high stakes, super competitive.
Talk about pressure. I mean, going up against those giants, it's like David versus Goliath.
Exactly. And it wasn't just external pressure. Inside X.com, there were these power struggles, clashes with co-founder Peter Thiel. Eventually, Musk gets ousted as CEO.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize it was that dramatic.
Oh, it's a roller coaster, but, even though it's a setback, it's a huge learning experience for him. He's forced to confront his own weaknesses as a leader, complexities of partnerships, intense competition.
It's like that saying, you either win or you learn. And in this case, he definitely learned, even if it was a tough lesson. And out of all this chaos comes this group that's been dubbed the PayPal Mafia. Right?
Oh, absolutely. It's this group of future tech giants who go on to found companies like Tesla, SpaceX, LinkedIn. I mean, the impact is massive.
Talk about a ripple effect. Okay, but before we get too deep into PayPal, let's shift gears to something even bigger, more ambitious. SpaceX. This is where his childhood fascination with space travel goes from, reading about it to actually building rockets.
What's wild is that SpaceX started with this almost like a whimsical idea. He wanted to send mice to Mars as a publicity stunt. Actually considered buying a refurbished ICBM for it.
Mice to Mars? Wait, really? I mean, that's crazy.
It is. But luckily, he kind of snaps out of it and realizes the real opportunity is in disrupting the entire space industry, lowering the cost of space travel and making it commercially viable. That's the game he decides to play.
And the big aerospace companies, the Boeings and Lockheed Martins of the world, they must just love that. Some .com guy coming in saying he could do it all cheaper and better.
I mean, skeptical is putting it mildly. They probably thought he was completely nuts. And, in the beginning, SpaceX faces all these challenges, failed launches, financial strain.
I mean, he's risking a huge chunk of his PayPal fortune on this. Why do you think he was so willing to bet everything on this, seemingly impossible dream?
It goes back to that unwavering belief in his vision, right? It wasn't just about building rockets. It was about challenging what everyone thought was possible. And he builds this team of like young, brilliant engineers who are all in, ready to prove everyone wrong.
So they were attracted to his ambition, well, let's face it, his crazy ideas.
Totally. They thrived in that high-pressure, fast-paced environment. It's almost like he built a culture that mirrored his own personality.
And those early risks, all those setbacks, they did eventually pay off, right? I mean, SpaceX, they didn't just, launch a rocket or two. Mm-hmm. They proved that low-cost commercial spaceflight, it could actually work.
It was a game changer. And that success, it opened the door to even bigger ambitions, like the Dragon capsule, designed to carry cargo and eventually humans to the International Space Station.
Okay, so we've gone from software to rockets, and now we're talking about sending people into space. It's insane. But there's still one more piece to this puzzle. Tesla. Elon's jump into the world of electric cars. That's got to be a story for next time.
All right, so last time we were talking about SpaceX and how they managed to, really shake things up in the space industry.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about. They went from this kind of wacky idea of sending mice to Mars to actually competing with the big guys, launching satellites, sending cargo to the ISS.
And let's not forget the reusable rockets. I mean, that was a total game changer in terms of cost and efficiency.
Absolutely. But now we're switching gears again, from rockets to roadsters. This is where Tesla comes in. And, Musk, he'd been interested in electric cars for a while, right? Even before Tesla, he was exploring some ideas with AC propulsion.
Oh, yeah. They were the ones behind the Zero, that super high-performance electric car. Musk was definitely intrigued by the technology. But with Tesla, it's a different story. He didn't actually start the company.
Right. It was Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning who got the ball rolling. They had this vision of building a luxury electric sports car, and they needed someone with deep pockets and a shared passion to, make it happen.
And Musk, he was the perfect fit. He saw the potential not just for a cool car, but for something much bigger.
Like a way to tackle climate change, to prove that electric cars could be, both awesome to drive and good for the planet.
Exactly. He becomes chairman of Tesla and eventually CEO, pouring in his own money, selling personal possessions, doing whatever it took to keep the company afloat.
Vance really paints a picture of just how intense those early days were, constantly on the verge of bankruptcy, production delays, technical challenges, and then, you had the public perception of electric cars back then.
Yeah, not exactly cool or sexy. People thought they were slow, boring, only for eco-warriors or something.
So Musk was battling on multiple fronts, trying to innovate, build a great product, convince people to actually buy it. That's a lot of pressure.
It is. But even with all that, he never really doubted Tesla's potential. It's that same unwavering belief we saw with SpaceX, that refusal to accept limitations. I mean, the guy's relentless.
Okay, so let's talk about the Roadster, Tesla's first car. I mean, it was essentially a modified Lotus Elise, right? But it was a statement.
It was. It showed that an electric car could be high performance, stylish, something you actually wanted to drive. The thing could go from 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds. That turned heads, and it really got people talking about Tesla.
Yeah, it shattered that whole image of electric cars being like glorified golf carts. But it wasn't all smooth sailing getting there, was it?
Oh, not at all. Vance goes into detail about all the engineering headaches they had, new bankruptcies, the constant push to innovate and, overcome obstacles.
So what was different about Tesla's approach? How did they manage to pull it off when so many other electric car companies had, failed?
They did things their own way. They skipped the traditional dealerships, sold directly to customers, focused on building a really strong brand experience. And then there's the technology, the whole over-the-air software updates.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask about that. For those who might not know, can you explain what those are?
Sure. Imagine, your car getting better over time, like your phone. Tesla can remotely send software updates that add features, improve performance, even fix problems. And you don't have to take it to a shop. It just happens.
It's like they were building a tech company. But instead of smartphones, they were making cars. Yeah. And speaking of game changers, the Model S, that was huge for Tesla, right?
Huge. I mean, the Model S, it was this beautiful all-electric sedan. It had impressive range, great performance, all packed with cool technology. And suddenly, electric cars weren't just for early adopters or, tech geeks.
They were for families, for everyday people. You could actually see yourself driving a Model S and not feel like you were sacrificing anything.
And Tesla, they didn't start there. They built out this whole network of superchargers so you could actually drive long distances without range anxiety.
So Musk was thinking ahead, realizing that to really make electric cars mainstream, you need the infrastructure to support it.
He wasn't just building cars, he was building a whole ecosystem. But that kind of ambition, that constant innovation, it comes at a cost. Vance doesn't shy away from, showing the downsides, the toll it all takes.
Yeah, the book talks a lot about Musk's leadership style, the crazy hours, the pressure cooker environment at both SpaceX and Tesla. Was it all worth it?
It's a tough question. You see employees struggling to keep up, the high turnover, the impact on his personal life. It definitely raises some ethical questions.
It seems like there's this constant tension between, achieving incredible things and, well, the potential for burnout, for people getting pushed too hard.
There is. And Vance presents both sides of the story, the good and the bad. He doesn't glorify Musk's behavior, but he also acknowledges the results, the innovation, the impact. So we've talked about SpaceX, Tesla. I mean, these are companies that are pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But even with all that, Elon Musk, he's not done.
It's like he's always looking for the next big challenge, right? Like just conquering the car industry and space travel. That's not enough.
Nope, not even close. You mentioned Solar City earlier, right?
Yeah.
That's his push into sustainable energy, trying to make solar power more accessible and, really change the way we think about energy.
Yeah, and then there's the Hyperloop, this crazy idea for a super high-speed transportation system. It's like he's trying to reinvent everything. Where does this drive even come from? Is it just pure ambition, or is there something more to it?
Well, reading Vance's book, you get the sense that Musk isn't driven solely by ego or, just wanting to be the biggest and the best. There's a genuine concern about the future, about climate change, about, maybe even the survival of humanity.
Yeah, like in the book, there's this part where he talks about colonizing Mars as a backup plan for humanity, just in case something happens to Earth.
It's like he's thinking on this completely different level, like a civilizational timescale, not just, quarterly earnings and stock prices. It's pretty wild.
It's inspiring, for sure. But it also makes you wonder, is this kind of ambition, this drive to constantly push the limits, is it ultimately a good thing or, well, could it be destructive?
That's the question Vance keeps coming back to throughout the book. He doesn't ignore the potential downsides. Musk's personality, his tendency to push people really hard, the high burnout rate at his companies, the impact on his personal relationships.
It's like there are always these trade-offs, right? I mean, on one hand, you have these groundbreaking innovations potentially saving the planet, trying to make us a multiplanetary species. But on the other hand, there's this human cost, the stress, the sacrifices, the people who get left behind.
It's a complicated picture, and Vance does a really good job of laying it all out, presenting the good, the bad, the complexities. He doesn't try to give you easy answers. He wants you to wrestle with these questions yourself.
And that's what makes this book so thought-provoking. It's not just a celebration of Musk's genius. It's a nuanced portrait of a real person, someone who's brilliant and flawed. I mean, while reading it, I was constantly going back and forth between feeling inspired and kind of worried.
I get that. It's like you can't help but admire his accomplishments, but at the same time, you have to ask, what's the price of all this progress? What does it mean for the people around him, for his family, for society as a whole? It's a question worth thinking about. I think one of the biggest takeaways from this deep dive is that, it's okay to be critical, to question things, even when it comes to someone like Elon Musk.
And honestly, his story, it shows that progress isn't always pretty. It can be messy, chaotic. There are going to be setbacks, failures along the way. But if you're determined enough, if you're willing to challenge the status quo, well, you might just achieve the impossible.
Absolutely. Love him or hate him, you can't deny that Elon Musk, he's a force to be reckoned with. He's shaping the future, and it's a future that we all have a stake in. So it's up to us to, engage with it, to think critically, and to decide what kind of future we want to create.
That's a great point. So to everyone listening out there, what are your thoughts? What did you take away from this deep dive into the world of Elon Musk? What questions are you left with? We'd love to hear your perspective. Thanks for joining us for this, this wild ride. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep pushing those boundaries. Until next time.